Welcome, my friends, to the Sage of Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Tonight, my very special guest and friend is Bill Ward. This show is part of a series of discussions where I will be interviewing friends of mine who are critical thinkers and who represent the true silent majority of folks working behind the scenes to move the ball forward on behalf of all humanity. Bill is retired military, and when in the military, he was a code breaker with a background in advanced mathematics, physics, and engineering. His post-military life includes working with the Veterans Administration in support of our vets, studying alternative medicine, researching Tesla and Rife technologies, and alternate realities. Tonight's discussion is wide-ranging as Bill offers his insights on the level of awareness within our military regarding their being used to propagate a world order versus freedom and democracy. We also discuss the difficulties of awakening the masses and wrap up with our thoughts on the plight of the current political process. And to kick the show off, I asked Bill to tell us about his journey in life, and here is what he had to say.
Well, there's a lot of different areas that I've been involved with, over the years. Well, I started out in the military in '78 in the Naval Nuclear Power Program and studied physics and thermodynamics and power transfer and so on for 6 months till developed a skin problem. They said, you can't work around radiation. You can't work on subs. I said, okay, I'll go do something else. Then I went in the Army and became a code breaker.
Okay.
And as part of that was studying radio frequencies, electronics, all of those different things that are involved in the transmission of electromagnetic energy and measuring it and so on and so forth. And even before that, as a kid, I was studying all this kind of stuff. So it's been a natural progression. Then as I got more advanced in the military, it was pretty easy to see how those of us in the military had our heart in serving others.
Yeah.
Whether it was the unit we were in or the people of our country or our families, whatever it was, there was a service there. And how those who were in control, whether it be the bankers or the governments or whatever, they were telling a lot of lies to keep this going, the whole system going. And because when you get down to it, people are just people.
Were you a career military person?
Yeah, I've got 23 years of active duty, and I've got 32 on their books.
I always wanted to ask somebody who's been in the military, how awake are the rank and file? I mean, the officers. Are most of them awake, not awake, or it's just a mixed bag?
It's a mixed bag. The percentage of those who are awake is very small, or want to be awake is very small, and I qualify that with want, because if you can't set aside some of the things you see, you can't continue to justify doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
You have to pick almost one side or the other of your brain sometimes.
Do you sense that there is, the military is fractured, that there is a faction that is looking to bring things to make it upright again, versus those that have essentially using the U.S. military as really nothing more than an imperial force to go get an agenda done?
Well, I think at the very top levels,
yeah,
there's a lot of self-serving going on, and they become part of the machine that is Congress and the executive branch and so on. At the rank and file level, it's very hard to even see what's going on 3, 4, 5 steps above you. Right now I'm working as a representative for retired and discharged veterans to take their claims to the VA. And as part of that, I get to talk to hundreds of retirees every month. And I can tell you there's a lot of people pissed off because they see what's happening. But as far as a split within the service, I didn't really see it, but I've been retired. Well, this year is 6 years I've been retired.
Yeah.
And there's been a hell of a lot of changes in 6 years.
I completely understand the compartmentalization piece of this thing, It's like because somebody worked at IBM, people think that you should know what's going on in the boardroom.
Right.
Or in the huge corner office of the IBM CEO sitting up in Armonk, New York. You just don't. I mean, you're basically getting handed down direction, strategy, edicts, mandates, and you're expected to put it into play, to execute,
Exactly.
right?
And that's it. You're operationally executing every day.
Right.
If you're putting 14, 16 hours a day in, you don't have really any time to think about where it's coming from or how it all ties in.
Yeah.
And that goes all the way up to the top levels, division commanders and so on. They're told to execute. And so now the whole operation gets moving.
Maybe you've watched this or heard of her. Her name is Kay Griggs, and she did something like a 6 to 8 hour interview. Her husband was a colonel in the Marines, and she had spilled the beans on what it was like to be in the upper echelon of the military. And of course, she was speaking mostly about the Marines, but I think, she was also leaning into the Army, and how many of these colonels, these generals, and so on are completely compromised, that they have gotten themselves into compromising positions, whether through secret societies, through various types of ritual practices that either they were completely aware of or not, maybe not, but they were participating anyway. And so what wound up happening is, or I guess I'm assuming it, well, I guess it's a good bet that it's still happening, is that all of these types of adventures that they participate in wind up becoming documented in one way or another, video, audio, so on, pictures. And so now what's happened is, even if you have good intentions, and let's just say that, you fucked up at one point and you participated in some of this nonsense,
you're caught.
They got you by the balls.
Yeah. And that's something that I never really saw, but I have, and thinking about it over the years, there were numerous occasions because of the jobs that I had and where I was stationed, that there were foreign or domestic agents that were always probing. You could be in a bar and somebody'd sit next to you and start drinking a beer and start asking oddball questions.
Yeah.
Or go somewhere and check into a hotel and have, a desk clerk or receptionist that spoke really good English asking to take them to the PX or something. All it would take would be walking into a facility like that that's open, you can sign people in, and them purchasing a magazine and the two of you walking out together with them having something in their hand. And that's a compromising position for anybody that has any types of clearances.
Yeah.
Potentially a compromising position. And it can go farther and much deeper. If you look at General Petraeus, what happened there.
Let me ask this question, Bill. Do you think that there is a disclosure process taking place? A lot of people kick that around. And I don't mean just a disclosure process as it pertains to the military, but generally speaking. In other words, there's an awakening taking place and the good guys or the white hats are breaking through, and we're going to start to see things in a different light, maybe moving in a better direction. I mean, do you see any of that?
I think that when you look around, there's so many things happening right now in all facets of life. And I think when you get a bunch of people's minds together, they're going to influence reality. Of course, that draws those things. So if he and I and you and other people start talking about certain things, they're going to start coming together.
Right.
Whether it's healing the planet or healing individuals, doing the kinds of things you do, alternative healings. But the disclosure, more than anything else, at least at the quantum level, is people are beginning to wake up, and the more people that wake up, the more there is to see. And I think that's what we're seeing, especially when you talk about a hive mind. We're both working for the same thing as humanity.
Yeah.
As a whole, trying to bring things out and make change. And I think we're all on the same sheet of music, playing different instruments.
I always say to folks, Bill, that there is definitely an awakening. There's no doubt about it.
Yes.
My concern is the rate and pace of the awakening because, we have a circle of friends or circle of influence, so however you want to describe it. And so sometimes I think that we can kind of get a false sense of security or false sense of the true rate and pace of the progress because I'm talking to you. You understand what I'm talking
Right.
about, and you understand me. But as soon as you step outside of that parameter and you go to Walmart,
Right.
and you take a look at the state of humanity, it's not good. I mean, it's really not good. It's not healthy. So that's why I try to express to folks that, at least in my opinion, and I don't think it's wishful thinking. I really do think it operates this way, that we have to achieve some level of critical mass, however you want to define critical mass.
Right.
I don't know what that number is, but certainly we don't have to get everybody on board, because if we had to, that would be futile. I mean, you couldn't do it. So it has to be a critical mass of free thinkers and critical thinkers, people who are movers and shakers, people who articulate well, people that enable things to happen.
And it's going to be a long process.
Right.
I've given that a lot of thought, and I see between 1,800 and 2,000 people a year. And I know in that 15, 20 minutes, hour that I see them, I've only got a short window to share my influence. I've got a job that I'm doing, yes, but there's still a connection there. And in some cases, in a lot of cases, an instant rapport. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I know fairly quickly whether somebody has an understanding of what's going on of a 2, or they're up at a 7, 8, or 9.
Yeah.
I try to leave a seed to everybody I talk to, some sort of seed that makes them want to start asking questions. And most people are aware when they're trying to be shut down. When the response that they get when they ask a question is a response that is a redirection or to turn off that question, most people recognize that. And so it's then a question or placing the seed of asking why. That's really what it comes down to. Why is it this way? Why are you responding that way? And when you see that, you don't necessarily have to get the answer. You know that you're not going anywhere there. You move on and say something to the next guy.
And asking why is very important, right? I mean, why is something happening? Why is something being presented this way or that way?
Right.
And that's what I explained to folks. I said, look, you know what? The whole transgender thing. Some of my friends are they're good people. They're really good people, but they don't see it for what it is. What I asked them to do, I said, look, instead of debating me, would you please stop for a moment and ask yourself, why has this presented itself at this time?
Mm-hmm.
As an example, are we seeing Bruce Jenner?
Right.
Why
the misdirection?
Exactly.
The things that are necessary to focus on.
Right.
And that's been a question I've been asking. When I see something that is just ludicrous, that really has no bearing on where we are and where we're going, and that makes me start looking even harder to VT and some of the other sites to see what's going on.
Right.
What are they trying to distract us from? And because we know that there is such a control organization, an organization of control that is, its primary purpose is to control humanity.
Right.
They can't keep all of us from knowing what's going on and what they're trying to keep everybody away from.
I had a conversation with Ole Damagard going back a couple of shows ago, maybe 3 or 4 shows ago. Ole's been on a lot. I love Ole. I said to Ole, everything worth knowing is a lie. If it's worth knowing, it's most likely what you know is not the truth. Mm-hmm. What you have is some half-cocked, maybe half-truth, or maybe an out-and-out lie.
Right.
As to what's going on. So, and people have a hard time believing that. They have a hard time getting their heads wrapped around the fact that they're being manipulated. I guess at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to.
Yes, I think that's it, is they don't want to believe, because then they have to look back at their life and go, wow, what happened here?
Yeah.
And when you're kept in a constant state of either fear or cognitive dissonance, it's much easier to focus on what you're being presented. It's much more comfortable than to say, what kind of lie is this? People have a comfort level, and they want to maintain that comfort level.
Yeah, I have people in my family, that they don't talk about what I do. They don't listen to the shows. They want to essentially, like you said, they want to just live in their box. They've defined their life. They've defined how they want it to be, what's true, what's not true, what it is they'll pay attention to, what it is they won't pay attention to, and that's that. And, what I try to explain to them, I don't get very far because many times they get very angry, is they're sub-optimizing their existence. They're sub-optimizing their life.
Right.
They're on a hamster wheel,
Yep.
but they don't want to admit they're on a hamster wheel. Connecting back to what you just said, can you imagine spending your whole life doing things a certain way, and then you realize that you wasted your entire life in a virtual reality?
I can't imagine that, but I see it all around me all the
Right.
time. And when you think about bread and circus hasn't changed, well, in 2,000 years that we're aware of. I can't see being so caught up in a sports activity or who's going to be the next voice. That just makes no sense to me whatsoever. No. And I'm lucky in that as time has gone on, my close family have all been on the same kind of quest, different levels of the same kind of quest, but the same quest nonetheless. My brother and I have had certain connections the whole time we've been on the planet. And my sister went, like most people, through the CNN, Fox News, and then I started sharing some things, and now she sees, well, my brother-in-law's been involved in fringe of politics as well, and big business, and he sees it. So there's always now, at least in my case, people who I can share things with that will give me a response as to the reality of what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
To their level of experience.
Let me ask you your opinion on Trump.
Any of your major political figures are nothing more than a front. And it's a front for a group of some sort. In his particular case, we don't know who the group is. There are so few throughout history independent people in those kinds of positions.
Yeah.
So we don't know who's behind the curtain, but he's got people behind the curtain. And whether they come out as part of the election process or come out later, they're going to be there, and they're going to be influencing.
Yeah.
Senator Bob Corker is from here in Tennessee, and there's lots of people talking about him being an influence, meeting with Trump, yada, yada, with regard to foreign policy and so on. And, you're talking about a used car salesman. And so is that really the person that is behind or potentially going to be influenced? Or do you look deeper and you see where the influences from that person are?
Yeah.
And you start following the threads, and it's just another means, I think, of coalescing around a certain thought pattern, way of acting, character. Everybody says he's got the character of America. Well, if you look at his past, you don't see the character that I would want displayed, nor do I see it in any candidate.
Yeah.
For that matter. I never do, whether it's somebody that's a mayoral candidate locally, all the way up to the president. The character that is the character that carries us through with others, caring for others and taking care of others, gets lost somewhere, even if they start out that way.
Sometimes people will ask me, well, you put some Trump stuff up on the blog, and and winds up on the Facebook page. And I said, I'm not supporting Trump. I said, I'm not supporting anybody. I'm watching, I'm kind of evaluating and I'm assessing this thing. I said, the reason why I'm putting him out there, what you are seeing in this process is you're seeing the corruption behind, the whole supposed democratic election process, the primaries. And we're seeing how this is really working. So set aside the fact that who he is, just like put anybody's name up there.
Right.
Look beyond him and take a look at the machinations. Take a look at what's going on.
Yep. But looking at the whole process, we see how corrupt it is.
Yeah.
And I hear, many different things on the radio, listen to talk radio in the morning on the way to work. The guys will talk about different races all over the country. If the party bosses don't want you in there, you're not going to be in there.
Right.
And party bosses are often influenced by, at least at the national level, we know they're influenced by foreign governments, foreign entities of some sort, whether banking interests or big business interests or governmental interests.
The whole lobbying aspect of it, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Getting paid off, yeah.
That's horrible. And I spend a lot of time, time is relative, I guess. I have a lot of thoughts trying to find and seeking a better system. And the answer that I keep coming up with is the system is okay. What's broke is the people that are in the system.
Yeah.
And we need to rid the system of those people that are in the top administrative levels of the bureaucracy. Get rid of a lot of the bureaucracy in the organizations. Why duplicate what's being done in the states? And if people don't like what one state is doing with regard to their EPA or the education system, you vote with your feet, you move. The problem we have with people who are dissatisfied with where they're at is, for the most part, they're tied into this love of money or the necessity of money, let alone the love of money. It's the necessity and the opposite of love, which is the fear of loss. If they're surviving, their biggest concern is going to be survival if they go someplace where it's better. But I think to revamp our system, we not only need to get rid of Congress and start over there and get rid of the executive branch, which we do every 4 years, supposedly, or 8 years. But then we have to look at all the bureaucracy that's been built up over the last 200 plus years.
Well, that's the real power apparatus, right? I mean, it's all of these agencies and stuff like that, because what you have is you have lifetime appointments, lifetime positions.
Right.
Right. So these are the people that live on beyond, switching the head in the Oval Office every 4 years.
Right.
Right. I mean, or changing your House of Representative every 2 years, or your senator every 6 years. You have people that are in that system. Like, if you take a look at some of the real power players, like Zbigniew Brzezinski, you have George Soros, you have Kissinger, and guys like that. I mean, they've been around for freaking decades.
And they know the guy that is the assistant administrator for you name it.
Right.
They've been around so long, they know this guy that's a 40-year bureaucrat, and they can influence him.
Right. Or they were probably very responsible in having them being put in that position.
Right.
So there's hey, it's always a payback. There's always a payback.
Yes. And the appointments of the top level, the cabinet guys, whether it's the Secretary of Defense or the Secretary of Energy or whatever it happens to be, that's just a figurehead.
Yeah. It's
that group underneath of them on the pyramid that are the ones who continue to push that 40, 50, 60-year, 100-year agenda.
Right.
And they get identified in different organizations I worked for. It was obvious that they get identified sometime before they're 30, and they will be fast-tracked. And so now that person, because they have rockets on their shoes, are beholden to whoever pulled them up.
Right.
And so now they get in that 40 years old, they get at that senior administrative level or bureaucratic level, and those guys that pulled them up there that are related to Brzezinski and Kissinger and so on in some way, they're still there influencing. They're the mentor. I saw that all the time, and I still see it working with the VA. And even in state agencies, you see the same thing.
So it's not even necessarily the brightest and the best in some cases. I mean, don't get me wrong. Some of the brightest and best do get the rockets on their shoes. I mean, they're tapped. But in other times, I've seen it where it's not the case.
Right.
So for some reason, they were plucked out and they were going to now be molded, shaped to go do the work, like you said, that their godfathers have said, this is what you're going to go do.
Right. It's pretty obvious in a lot of cases, and it forces the best and the brightest often out of that particular industry or that train.
That's right.
Path. I saw it in the 90s when the Army started doing the drawdown. There were 6 of us, myself included, that were pretty much the top at what we did. And there were a lot of other folks, but we were the ones getting awards and helping stations to get trophies and awards. And when they started the drawdown, of course, when you're downsizing, you're not promoting. And 6, 7 years, you're watching no one get promoted. And when they start promoting, it's not the best and the brightest, the ones that should be the trainers.
Yeah.
It's a totally different group. And you wonder why. And then 10 years later, you look at where these people are, and you know that there's still an influence behind them somewhere.
Yeah.
And whether that's at the NCO level where I was, or at the officer level, or the bureaucratic level, whether it's business or government, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's very much the same.
I started off as a kid reading books about UFOs and comic books, and where is that reality today? Because when you go from those and you go to study people like Tesla, my grandfather went to Tesla University in Chicago in the 30s.
Yeah.
So there's an influence there. There's a lot of different things that we can talk about.
And quite honestly, Bill, I mean, I see how you respond to posts on Facebook, and it's very, very clear you're a very bright, intelligent guy, So that's something I want to bring to people. Let's bring people who are good thinkers, critical thinkers to the show. Let's have a discussion about whatever. Because a lot of the stuff that you and I just talked about, I mean, a lot of people are thinking about those things or wondering about them. Even the whole Trump thing, we talked about. Is he real? Is he not real? I mean, what's going on with that guy? Now,
Right.
You and I don't have the answer to that, right? But at least we can pose the question and bang around some thoughts about what we think might be going on, what could be going on.
And people do have character changes. Their characters do change.
Right.
And, I think, you mentioned my posts. A lot of my posts they may be based upon intelligence and experience in what I have, but it's amazing how much of it is intuition. Intuition can answer a question, and it just, it's the right answer so quickly.
And that concludes another Sage of Quay interview, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Links to my guests' websites and social media are listed in the show notes below. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can get to the blog by typing in sageofquayradio.blogspot.com or simply head over to our hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to listen to my album, Leaving Dystopia. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone next week. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.
Hey brother, hey sister, hey mister, let's be one, we are one, no more war, seem true.